Dear friends, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for being here today. It's a joy to have this opportunity to work together on behalf of humanity and the planet on this last day of preparation and upward striving within the 5-day period of the Sagittarius Solar Festival. This is our last webinar meeting for this year, and it seems propitious to be working with the energies of visionary, one-pointed, and intuitive Sagittarius, pointing our arrows of aspirational intention into the new year, opening as it does under the influence of Capricorn, which metaphorically places the disciple at the foot of the mountain of initiation, once the work in Sagittarius is fully accomplished. Here in the U.S. Eastern Time Zone, the exact time of the festival occurs at 7:27 a.m. tomorrow morning. As is our practice at the outset of our meeting, let's rededicate ourselves to our shared purpose of electrifying, strengthening, and deepening the planetary antakarana, that rainbow bridge of radiant light, connecting humanity, the hierarchy, and Shambhala, thus intensifying and amplifying the streaming energies of light, love, and the will to good for the whole of humanity and for all life on our planet. Let's begin this upward and inward journey by sounding the noontime recollection, aware of our sacred relationship to that great and blessed chain of hierarchy that is eternally pointing the way and radiating the loving energies of our second-ray solar system, and thus strive to be receptive to the energies emanating from all aspects of the sun, the physical sun, the heart of the sun, and the central spiritual sun, this month aligning with the sign of Sagittarius and all its attendant energies. I know, O Lord of life and love, about the need. Touch my heart anew with love, that I too may love and give. Thank you, friends. On this last webinar of this year, I thought it might be helpful to briefly articulate the purpose and intention of these monthly meetings and this meditation initiative that seeks the transformation of planetary consciousness, as it focuses on the spiritual work of the United Nations and the liberation of humanity. Very simply, this overarching purpose is to help prepare the path of light for the feet of our beloved Master and Teacher, the Christ, the reappearing one, the teacher alike of men and angels, and the world spiritual teacher who is leading humanity into the age of Aquarius. Before that reappearance on the physical plane can take place, we know that certain planetary conditions must exist. By focusing on the spiritual work of the United Nations, we share in the attempt to help bring about these planetary conditions. For example, by becoming familiar with and thinking through the work of the United Nations, we're helping to clarify the international situation. We're helping to support the establishment of a world unity, which will produce right human relations based on the rule of the soul, or the rule of love, wisdom. We help strengthen the UN's goal and resolve of encouraging the cultivation of sound governments, those governments who have the welfare of their citizens foremost in their minds. We support the development of a new system of economics based on the principle of sharing, and we also encourage the development of a united spiritual effort inspired by the hierarchy of masters and focused on developing an enlightened world public opinion. By focusing on UN ideas that are in alignment with universal spiritual values and principles, we help awaken that intuitional consciousness that will result in a new, enlightened world. It was, after all, the Tibetan master, writing on behalf of the hierarchy, who gave us the concept of the United Nations as the hope of humanity, that if successful, would lead to the liberation of humanity. This webinar format is provided primarily as an opportunity to engage in the three major sciences of the New Age: the science of building the Antakarana, the science of meditation, and the science of service. It's offered as an opportunity for sacred group service at this propitious time of each of the monthly solar festivals. Although we always appreciate a good turnout at these meetings, we're also aware that the hierarchy is not interested in a numerical count, but rather in the quality of light or thought engendered and generated, in the ability of the individuals within the group, and then the group itself as a whole, to pierce through the veils of Maya, glamour, and illusion, and to bring forth those sacred energies and ideas that alone will transform planetary consciousness. I see the goal, I reach that goal, and then I see another. Such is the esoteric keynote of this most human of signs, connected as it is with the earliest appearance of humanity upon the earth. In the long run, literally, when the path of evolution has been traversed to its very end, what remains, we are taught, will be the divine purpose and the all-enveloping life as it materializes the plan in time and space. This is the result of the turning of the greater wheel of life, causing all the lesser wheels, in time and space, also to turn. Here, Sri Krishna's words elucidate this point. Having pervaded this whole universe with the fragment of myself, I remain. In time and space, God immanent is always but a minuscule part of God transcendent. In the book, The Rays and the Initiations, the Tibetan master states that the human being is first of all driven by desire, then by aspiration toward some vision goal, then by his personal, selfish will, which reveals to him the nature of the will through persistent application to some purpose seen as desirable, and to which every power is then bent. Having exhausted all tangible goals, eventually, the inner life forces the individual on towards the intangible, and the quality of his and her will begins to change. He and she discover a larger will than one's own, and so the individual begins to slowly identify with it, proceeding stage by stage from one realized purpose to another higher one, each step removing him and her further from his and her personal will and bringing the individual nearer to an appreciation of the significance of the greater, more inclusive divine will or purpose. Thus, God immanent transforms the daily life. 5 keynote statements are given to us to help us develop our understanding of the sign of Sagittarius. For our purposes here today, I would like us to focus on the last 2. The first of these is the returning arrow of the intuition. Interestingly, it is the shaft of the arrow of aspiration which returns as the arrow of the intuition. That is, according to one's own formulated and projected aspirations, will one realize the returning arrow of the intuition. Only the intuition developed under Sagittarius will be sufficient to bring the individual to the foot of the mountain of initiation in Capricorn. In esoteric astrology, the truth is expressed thusly. In Sagittarius, the intellect which has been developed, used, and finally illumined becomes sensitive to a still higher type of mental experience, and to this we give the name of intuitive perception. The individual walks no longer in the dark, for he sees what he has to do, and he therefore makes rapid progress and travels fast upon the way. He flies from point to point, searching for the arrows which he has discharged. I see the goal, I reach that goal, and then I see another. The disciple is always esoterically self-directed and self-taught. In the externalization of the hierarchy, we read, "It's not man-made interpretations which save a man, but his self-initiated application of his own understanding of the teaching." Only in this way can the disciple then become the dedicated, cooperative co-worker to the hierarchy of the masters. This brings us then to the fifth keynote statement for Sagittarius. Idealism is the power to see the vision and to direct one's course towards it. In studying Sagittarius, it becomes obvious that once again, on a higher turn of the spiral, we are met with the underlying theme of direction. The transfer of the consciousness from a lower vehicle into a higher one is part of the great creative and evolutionary process. The archer guides his horse, the personality, towards some one specific objective. He sends or directs his arrows towards a desired point. He's aiming at some specific goal. This sense of direction or guidance is characteristic of the enlightened man, of the aspirant and disciple, and this is a growing recognition. There is no true direction apart from thought, and upon the reversed wheel the goal is the expression of love-wisdom, and this is ever selflessly developed and always consecrated to the good of the whole, and not to the satisfaction of the individual. Here we are reminded of Madame Blavatsky's compelling instruction in her now classic booklet on practical occultism. She states, "How shall the still small voice make itself heard in a soul entirely occupied with its own privileged tenets?" She goes on, "The person who would profit by the wisdom of the universal mind has to reach it through the whole of humanity. It is altruism, not egoism, even in its most legal and noble conception, that can lead the individual to merge its little self in the universal self." A note of caution about the quality of our thoughts might here be in order before we enter into our meditation. The Agni Yoga wisdom teaches that a crude thought can forever drive away a beautiful, subtle thought. One would be astonished to see how the supermundane guest flies away from a crude touch. People cannot imagine how much labor is needed for the supermundane friends to push a thought through dense, earthly matter. These friends seek the best atmospheric conditions to better transmit their messages. They wait for a time when the earthly dwellers can open their psychic ears in a calm mood. But even if the best conditions are present, some messenger from the bazaar can appear, and the most subtle thought is driven away. It is difficult for supermundane friends to send messages to earth, even the most urgent ones. The concerns of everyday life obscure the voice of silence. Thus, it is difficult for us, your super-mundane friends, when people turn a deaf ear to us and prefer the bizarre. The thinker instructed his disciples, "Be on guard, day and night. You do not know the moment when a super-mundane message will come to you." And with that, let us prepare for our meditation.